Off we go on the second segment. We have mentioned that God is calling to us to let God handle this, and we suggested some of the prayers that can be used. Now, the issue becomes, how come this works? Because you have, in fact every one of us has, two minds. The human mind that causes all our problems and hasn't got the slightest idea of how to get us out of them, and the divine mind that God created us with as the single blessed mind that unites us with the love of God and to be able to look upon things the way God looks upon them. Well, the first thing that happens when you do that and you receive God's mind is a state of peace. There's no worries attached to it. There's no aggravation. There's no fear, no anxiety, a feeling of belonging, no sickness, and no death. It is the mind of an eternal spirit being. And you might have heard me speak of this in other segments, that God addressed me and said, there is but one truth. Ye are God's, and ye are loved. No other feeling about ourself and others, or about our qualities of how God feels about us, exist except in our imagination, because God created us to feel the totality of being loved. And so the answer to misery is to realize that there is an alternative, that we are in the wrong mind. We have walked away from the truth of ourself, which has no misery in it. It is pure joy. We are therefore fantasizing misery. We are fantasizing the experiencing of misery, of aggravation, of the denial of who we truly are. And this is what's causing the misery, and God says, I want it shifted over to me. Now, a question to you. Are you ready to be able to hand this problem over to God, for God to overcome it? That you're willing to give it to God and let God solve these problems the best way God knows that it is for you and for others who are involved? Are you ready to let go of your own opinions, of your own judgments, of the desire to be able to run your own life, to lead it your way, and to let God be in charge of this? Are you ready for that? Now, that's the question that needs to be looked at. Because part of the misery that we're feeling is that in some way or other we're down on ourselves. And if we're down on ourselves, we will also, out of that misery, believe that God is down on us, because how we feel about ourselves we project onto other people and onto God. And so it's not so easy, if your misery relates to being down on yourself or being threatened or annihilated, whatever the human state is at that point, to let it go over to God, because the outcome is fearful when you're down on yourself. You think that you can be punished or ignored, or you can exasperate God, very, very frightening kinds of things. But if that is the issue, that you are worried about how God would handle things, and that there could be some kind of pain or distress or fearful aspect to it, you have to give that over to God. That has to be given over to God. And so the prayer becomes now a different one. Beloved, whatever your prayer is to who your Creator is, it can be Adonai Elohim, Allah. With myself, it's Jesus and Mary, because I was told that Jesus and Mary are Mother God and Father God, one with that. So I address them, but where I address them to my comfort. You address God to your comfort according to your religious tradition or your spiritual outlook. To go to God and say, I have fear of letting you handle something. I have fear of it. And I ask your help to be able to look at this fear. I ask your help. How can I overcome this fear? I ask your help to lead me on this. To ask your help. Am I wrong in being afraid? I'm trying to give you the various options, the various alternatives when you pray this thing. Because if there is a fear of letting God run your show, it has to be faced. You can't get by it. You cannot. The human mind lives on those kind of fears and will multiply them and intensify them within inside yourself as a way for you to get to concentrate on the human mind and get you away from the divine mind. So, if you want to let God overcome it, no matter what it takes a prayer to God to be able to solve that problem for you. It's something you can't solve yourself. You can't think your way out of it because the human mind's thinking is negative at worst and a know-nothing at best. And if you say, oh, but Bob, really, aren't we supposed to be able to handle our own problems and talk these things over with God, including misery? I remind you again of what Jesus said himself about his own mind when he's talking of his human state. Of myself, I know nothing. I must look to the Father who shows me what to do, and I do what the Father shows me. Well, good hearts, if Jesus has to do that kind of a thing, if Jesus has to go to the Father, or as I would say it, to the Mother as well, then what does that say for us? There apparently is nothing to be ashamed of. It seems as though to acknowledge this is a strength, because it leads to the steps in healing that follow the recovery of the awareness that our human mind is a know-nothing, or what it does know is just loaded with mistakes and errors and is worthless because it does not represent the truth of what you are, and which is, again I remind you, there is but one truth. You are a God, and you are loved. You were made that way. No room for misery. God has the answer to every single issue, be it personal, the affairs of the world. There is no death. Nothing can be done to you because you are an immortal, eternal being. And to recover that state is the way that God handles your problems, because you now have perspective and a choice to abandon the thinking that you have been doing, and to choose to let God run you into into the divine mind, and be able to experience the fact that there is a resolution there that you had no awareness of, that there's nothing to fear. You are indestructible. Oh, you can leave this world, you can leave this body, but you can do anything you want with the identity that you wish. If you want to live life after life, or I should say experience after experience, like we're doing with this human life, you're very welcome to do it. God lets you do it. But amongst those options is also the one that you can stop at any point when you realize that as you experience the life of the divine mind versus the experience of the human mind, notice I don't call it life, the experience of the human mind, the life of the divine mind always wins. And I've seen it. I've seen it, loves, I've seen it. that when God steps in with me, when I give God the opportunity, when I turn to God and ask for help, all I get is a feeling of peace and love, peace and love and joy and belongingness. There is no existence of the misery. Well, we're going to take one more aspect of this in our next segment about overcoming human misery.